Dear learners, welcome back to your educational channel Learn and Educate, where we were studying a few basics about the Income Tax Act 1961. Income Tax Act consolidates and amends the law relating to income tax and super tax. Continuing that series now, Section 2, Clause 37. Public servant. Public servant has the same meaning which has been assigned to it under Section 21 of the Indian Penal Code 1860. As per the Indian Penal Code 1860, public servant means the person who falls to be who is any commissioned officer in the military, in the naval force, in the air force of the India. Every commissioned officer in the military, naval force or air force of the India. Every judge who includes any person who has been empowered by the law to discharge whether by himself or as a member of any body of persons or as a member of any adjudicatory functions, any judge including any person who is empowered by law to discharge any adjudicatory functions. Every officer of a court of justice includes which includes a liquidator, a receiver or commissioner who has a duty such as an officer to investigate or report on any matter of fact or law, to make authenticate any documents, to take charge of any property, to dispose of any property, to execute any judicial process, to administer any oath or interpret or to preserve order in the court, and every person specifically authorized by the court of justice to perform any such function. Public servant includes every juryman, assessor or a member of the panchayat who is assisting a court of justice or who is assisting a public servant. Public servant means every arbitrator or other person to whom any cause or matter has been referred to for a decision making or a report by any court of justice or has been referred by any other competent public authority. Every person who holds any office by virtue of which he has been empowered to keep any person in confinement, to place any person in confinement. Public servant means every officer of the government whose duty, such as an officer, is to prevent offence, to give information of such an offences, to bring offenders to justice, or to protect the public health, convenience, safety. Public servant is every officer whose duty as such an officer is to receive, keep or expend any property on behalf of the government, to make any survey, assessment or contract on behalf of the government. Every public officer, every public servant who has a duty to execute any revenue process, to investigate, to report on any matter affecting the pecuniary interest of the government, to make, authenticate or to keep any document which is relating to the pecuniary interest of the government, that public officer, that public servant has to prevent the infraction of any law for the protection of the pecuniary interest of the government. Public servant is every officer whose duty is as such an officer to take, receive, keep or expend any property, to make any survey or assessment or to levy any rate or tax for any secular common purpose of any village, town or district, or to make, authenticate, keep any document for the ascertaining of the rights of the people of any village, town or district. Every public servant who holds an office in virtue of which he is empowered to prepare, to publish, to maintain, to revise an electoral roll, to conduct an election or a part of the elections. Every public servant who is in the service or of the government or who gets the pay from the government or who is remunerated by fees or commission for the purpose of performance of any public duty by the government. Every public servant who is in the service or pay of a local authority or a corporation established by under the central province or a state act or a government company as defined under the Companies Act 2013. Therefore, a public servant means the persons explained under the Indian Penal Code, who includes every commission officer in the military, every judge, every officer of the court of justice, every assessor or a member of the panchayat who is assisting a court of justice, or every person who is assisting a public servant himself, every person who holds any office by virtue to keep any person in confinement, every person who has been conferred a decision or a report by court of justice, every officer whose duty is to receive, keep, expand any property on behalf of the government, to make survey assessment contract on behalf of the government, to execute any revenue process. Every person who holds any office in virtue of which is empowered to prepare, publish, maintain, revise electoral roll, conduct an election,